Okay. Okay. Hopefully this is working. Right, okay, so I have, well, first off, I have two cameras now. Hold on, let me just yes! Two cameras! I don't know why I have two cameras. It doesn't, I can actually see myself in the mirror. That's really weird. Anyway, I have two. I really don't like that. Well, whatever. There are two cameras. I don't know why there are two cameras. I just thought it would be fun. But I think I'll switch back to camera one. I think I prefer this. Yes, this is better. Okay, so I have a plan. Basically, I want to write a Medium article, which I am on. Hold on, let me just show you here. There we go. I'm on Medium. You can find me at rafewoods.medium.com. As you can see, I've written a few articles on various different things. Not for a while though, but I want to write a new one. I thought this would be a good way to hold myself to account, basically. I think we'll switch over the music here. This seems a bit dull. And basically, this will help keep me accountable, and it helps me sort of work through what I'm gonna say, basically, which is quite useful. So the title of the article will be called "Maps I Find Interesting," which is in the title of the stream actually as well. Now, maps I find interesting. So I have a few ideas of which maps I find interesting. I believe I have. Hold on. The first one, I actually don't have them saved anywhere, so I have to look them up really quickly. We're gonna go map of ECOWAS. Now, odds are you probably haven't heard of ECOWAS. I mean, I hadn't until like a couple weeks ago. But basically, I think we'll go here. Yes, this seems smart. So, it seems insignificant. I understand that. Actually, my camera's kind of covering it. Hold on, maybe I can... No. Hold on. Let's just go to the actual... Yes, okay, this is better. You can see it's just a section of West Africa. It stands for, I believe... Oh, Christ. The Economic Community of West Africa or something? Of West African states, I think. Yeah, that sounds right. Basically, West Africa is not somewhere you would think of as being significant. However, it is actually very significant. Nigeria, in the future, will become one of, if not, I think might be projected to be the most populous nation on Earth. Right now, it's China, obviously. Then I think India might surpass China. But Nigeria is the sort of up and coming. The region is very poor, so it's, there's really widespread poverty, and but also the key thing here is war, basically. From the north, there are various different terrorist groups, jihadist terrorist groups. It might surprise you, ISIS is active there. Not as big as it was in Syria or Iraq, but it is active there. So is Al Qaeda, and other dissident groups. But the reason it's interesting is because of how completely sort of, everything seems to go wrong, basically. There is not a lot to be hopeful for, unfortunately, in West Africa. Basically, the main reason for this, I think, maybe this will be another map I find interesting, but the Sahel. Now, the Sahel is the region below the Sahara. So if you think of the Sahara Desert as being completely devoid of any vegetation and very, very few people, I think we'll use Wikipedia again. If you think of it being completely devoid of people, then the Sahel is still got a pretty sparsely densely population. It's very sparsely populated, but and on top of that, it's also very dry and it doesn't rain very often. So crops there are pretty unreliable. So it's kind of susceptible to famine. Um, and But the worst thing about this is it's especially affected by climate change. So it's very vulnerable to climate change, and how it could affect the entire region, we don't really know yet, but so far it's not looking good. Now, the countries in the Sahel, we've got Eritrea over on the right, but that's pretty insignificant. Sudan, which has been in the news recently over a lot of war issues, but we won't go too deep into that. But you can see South Sudan here split in 2015, so it has lots of problems. Basically, it's war torn at the moment and is not a hopeful region. Then we have Chad, which is, I mean, all of these countries, just to put it clearly, they are among, if not the poorest countries in the world. They are not looking good at all. So we've got Chad, which is not great. We'll skip over, but here's Niger, which is what we'll talk about mostly, I think. So Niger's there, this kind of funny shaped country. Interestingly, you kind of understand, most of the population is sort of in this tiny area here, this entire chunk here. Most people don't live here. And that's sort of the same across the Sahels. It's the same here. To the west, we have Mali, this kind of funny shaped one as well. Most of the population is here. Burkina Faso, also slightly in the Sahel, and is usually in that group of countries. And then here we have Mauritania and Senegal. But again, Senegal is a bit like Eritrea. It's kind of on the edge, But Mauritania is kind of a lost cause. Now, let me see if I can remember my statistics here. But in this region, there have been, I could be wrong here, but I believe it's 6 coups in the last, coup d'etat in the last 3 years, I think. Which is not great. So we're talking a military takeover of government, of a democratically elected government. Now, it could be for a variety of reasons, but mostly it seems to be because of the jihadist sort of militias from the north, and they come in and they come down and they make things really difficult, which means that the country in question needs a strong army. They need a strong army to defend their land and the people. And basically that means if you have a strong army, then, if the army perceives, or certain military leaders perceives the government to be doing a bad job, then they can quite easily initiate a coup. And if it's a trend across all of these countries, so we've had coups, I think we've had coups in Mauritania, Mali, Burkina Faso, and now Niger. If you have coups across these countries and there's very little accountability from other countries to stop, then it becomes a trend. And here we are with Niger. Now, Niger is unique and is more of a tipping point than these other countries because it is actually unique amongst other countries in that it democratically elected a president twice, which basically means there was a peaceful handover, a democratic handover of power. And that's quite significant. It might not sound significant. Maybe it does sound significant because it didn't seem to happen in America recently, but it's significant for a region and also Africa in general. It seemed like they were onto a good thing, Niger. And out of all of the countries in the Sahel, they were probably the most hopeful cause. However, this has since been undone by, even if we look up Niger coup, it's in the news, constantly. Basically the president, I think he's called Mohamed Bazoum, was ejected by this guy, General Tishani, I think. Yeah. And the interesting thing about him is that, well, interesting thing about a lot of these guys across the Sahel is that all the coups across the Sahel were kind of initiated by mid-level military leaders. So we're not talking real top level, and we're not talking low level, but it's been initiated by mid-level, which is interesting. Maybe it's because they have more power over the everyday troop. They have more contact with the everyday troop so that they can get them to do things. But yeah, it's interesting. And I think a lot of the coup was initiated by the presidential guard, so it was kind of coming right from inside. But the reason for instigating the coup, he said, was because he thought that the president was not doing a good enough job on security and protection from the jihadists and the external threats. And basically, that's wrong. That's just kind of just completely false. And essentially, I think I had a statistic somewhere. I can't remember exactly, but it's something like, deaths, violent deaths, so deaths from these terrorist groups, deaths from this violence. If you compare them across the Sahel, there's probably about 300 in the first 3 months of 2023. But if you compare it to other countries, like where are we? Burkina Faso, this one here, or Mali or Mauritania, or even Nigeria, which is more stable than the other countries. Those deaths are sort of in the thousands. Niger was actually doing pretty well against the jihadists. So his excuse for initiating the coup, it doesn't make much sense. And then the other thing that is significant, I think we might actually draw a little diagram here, because it's kind of significant. So this, the Russian flag, I don't know if you can see that properly, but the Russian flag has been waved many times. What we might do is we might draw a little diagram. If we look up, if we go on Paint 3D, and we do a little diagram here, because I think it's important. I think the interesting thing about this case is that there's a lot of interested groups. Basically, you've got Niger in the center, and you've got all like the coup leader and the president and everything like that. But this has drawn a lot of international attention for various different reasons, and I will illustrate what that looks like by drawing a little diagram. So we're going to put Niger flag in the center. So the idea is, I will just copy that over. I will show you my document in a minute. Yep, that'll do rightly. And we'll look up the Russian flag. I think we'll start with Russia. No, actually, we'll start with ECOWAS. We'll start with ECOWAS. So this is the first interested party. So if we can get an ECOWAS logo over here, yeah, this will do. And we'll put it right there, and I'll just switch my stream over to Paint 3D. Yes. Okay, so here we go. This is my little Paint document. Okay, so we're gonna draw a rough line from here to here. Okay. Actually, I don't like that in blue. That sucks. Okay, in black. That is the first interested group. Now, ECOWAS, as I've said before, this is the map I find interesting. We've gone on a bit of a tangent, but it doesn't matter. They are the first. Actually, you can't really see that very well. hold on. Yeah, that was probably a bit better. Um, they're the first interested group because they are obviously the regional people. Now, ECOWAS, I don't think they've updated their flag. I can't actually their logo yet, but or I have an outdated one. But they're interesting, as you can see here, actually, in this Wikipedia map. These countries in light green are suspended, basically. So Mali, Burkina Faso, where's that? I think that's Guinea. I could be wrong, but I think that's Guinea. I believe they had all had coups, and now Niger has had a coup. So they've all had their membership suspended from the economic community of West African states, which isn't, it would be like the equivalent of the EU if everyone in the EU was really poor. But this might look significant. This might look significant in terms of land area, which it is, but most of the populations are centered on these coastal states. So it is a significant blow to ECOWAS and indeed their logo, but it's not as bad as it looks. But it is pretty bad. So whether it could spread throughout ECOWAS is another matter. I wouldn't know enough about all of these countries to be able to give a definitive guess. Nigeria recently had an election this year, in fact. I just realized I'm not projecting the map, but whatever. Nigeria recently had an election this year, but and there was 3 candidates, I believe. There was the sort of traditional opposition candidate who won. The traditional sort of not the incumbent, because the incumbent had run up his 2 terms, which is a strength of Nigeria's democracy, by the way, that they actually have a term limit, unlike other African states, for presidents. And then the 3rd candidate was this guy called Peter Obi, I think, who was kind of the young up-and-comer who quite a lot of people in the so-called West would have been hopeful for him to win, because it's kind of outside the guy who won, the opposition candidate, the traditional opposition. He's not terrible. I mean, he's very rich, but yeah, it's so far Nigeria is looking all right. Not ideal because it has many internal problems, but it's not. I wouldn't say it would be susceptible to a coup necessarily. Other countries, not so sure. But it's certainly a blow for the entire trading bloc that it's lost these countries. Let's see, what should we move on to next? Yeah, so ECOWAS is the interested group. Now, the key thing about this here is that they gave an ultimatum. They said if the democratically elected government isn't instated by, well, you can guess what happened, by last Sunday. So last Sunday, that was the deadline. If it's not instated, they will go in with their military force and they will take it out. But obviously, that hasn't happened. So basically, they set their deadline too soon, and there's a couple of reasons why that didn't materialize, why they didn't go in with their military. Firstly, because the president, the president is still, he's been ousted, but the president is there. He's sort of under house arrest, but he's still dealing with a lot of the communications. I hope I'm up to date with all this. I hope, because I only looked at it yesterday and things could have changed. But I think I am up to date. I'll try to speak more generally. But Antony Blinken, who I think is the US Secretary of State, was in contact with him and had a call with him, and basically they're saying, the most paramount thing is making sure the democratically elected leader isn't like executed or something, because that would be pretty bad, because he was fairly democratically elected in a peaceful turnover of power, which is unfortunately it's impressive by standards of other states. So yeah, I think that covers ECOWAS, as basically they set their deadline too soon, and it's kind of they're not sure what to do yet. But the one thing I would say about ECOWAS is nice to see regional neighbors trying to deal with the issue. In the past, it might have been a situation where the UK or the US, but more likely France in this case, which we haven't talked about, would have stepped in, and a colonial power going in and trying to sort out the situation has not seemed to work in the past. But so far, ECOWAS seem to have failed. I'm just gonna take a drink of water. Yeah. So the next interest group, I think we will go with the Wagner Group, or the Wagner Group. Oh, you may have heard of in fact, you probably have heard of the Wagner Group in the context of Ukraine and Russia and the Russian invasion of Ukraine. They're led by this guy. I think this is him. A bit blurred. Yeah, this guy. I don't know if you can see that. Yevgeny Prigozhin, who recently tried to march on the Russian capital of Moscow because he said the Russian military leadership under Putin was not doing a good enough job. And that was a huge news story, but in the end it proved to be a little bit of a damp squib because nothing materialized. He backed down. The president, I think, of Belarus, Lukashenko, stepped in and basically said negotiate an agreement, but Belarus is kind of part of Russia. But we're getting on a tangent here. Wagner in Africa is perhaps more worrying, equally worrying, than its involvement in Ukraine. Can I draw? No, I can't. Can I draw? There we go. So Wagner's the second interest group, but really, if I just quickly get a Russian flag here, really the Wagner group is just Russia. Wagner group is a mercenary group, but it's made up of Russian convicts. Hold on, let me just put it in here. But it's made up of Russian convicts, and I think we'll put it just underneath there because it is basically Russia. And what you've seen is in Niger is all these here we go. So Russian flags being waved. That's been a key image of this coup. All these Russian flags. I think my camera might be. Oh no, wait! I need to project here. 1 minute. There we go. You see all these Russian flags have been waved. A couple of commentators said this has been exaggerated, and the effects of this has been exaggerated. But I think, and it's not necessarily pro-Russia. It's more anti-France, and we'll get into that in a bit, but all I'll say for now is that France is the formal colonial power across West Africa. So if we go to the map of the Sahel again, we can see, in fact, even better, if we look up French African states, for example. The French Empire, which is, I think a lot of people don't really know about, and in comparison to the British Empire. Like if you imagine this map of Africa, if we go to this Wikipedia page and scroll down to the map, you can see this map of Africa, and you can see this is French-speaking Africa. Not all these countries were sort of under France 100% of the time. Like Nigeria was under British rule, and Ghana was under British rule, etc. Liberia was always independent. DRC was under the direct authority of King Leopold the whatever. That's a whole other story. But the French had an enormous amount of control over French Africa, and this is why everyone speaks French in these states. Now, as you can see, if we cross-reference ECOWAS with the Francophone states, then you can see that they have a lot in common. Like Nigeria, the main is not French, Francophone. There's a couple of French speakers, but it's not to the same extent. But like all of these countries here are Francophone. Niger is Francophone. And as you can imagine, if you have a colonial power, there would be a lot of resentment towards that colonial power. And at the end of the day, France in West Africa have not gone away, really, since these states became independent in the 1950s and 60s. In the 1950s and 60s. Really, they have stayed, which is a good thing and a bad thing. A good thing in the sense that in a lot of cases they are protecting and assisting these countries and trying to make them more democratic, and also defending against the jihadists. But they really have failed, more or less, because they've failed, obviously, as we can see, because of these incursions by jihadists. So this wouldn't be a news story if the military is struggling in Mali and Burkina Faso, and that is was most notable in the earlier year, I think. Last year. France, they were totally Wagner. It was a whole huge thing, and basically a similar thing has happened in Niger, but not to the same extent yet. Wagner isn't in, but obviously the Russian flag's being waved, and the military talking about, Russia and stuff like that. It's kind of almost heading on the same course. It's tempting to think this is a grand Russian conspiracy to gain control of West Africa, and they're cooperating directly with military leaders in a slow turnover. It's not that bad, or we don't really know, but it's likely not that bad. But on the flip side, it's really not good, because this isn't a random occurrence. There's clearly a trend here where the French are leaving and Wagner is going in, Russia is going in, which isn't great. I finally have the image here. Yeah, so you can see there's been a coup. Yeah, it's you can see there's the Russian flag again, etc. And there's been French flags being burned in Niger and stuff like that. It's an incredibly complex situation, but I think at this point it's important to understand why this is relevant. We'll get into that a bit more later, but I think at this point it's important to understand that Russia gaining control across Africa is not a good thing. The French are just another colonial power who've clearly messed up militarily, and also to a certain extent in aid. But Wagner, the Russians are anti-democratic. Putin is a despot. It's a whole thing. You don't want the Russians having power. yeah, so it's incredibly complicated. Um, the other key people, well, we'll add. I'll tell you what, we'll add France in just because we just talked about them. I think I've covered. I didn't mean to cover all of France, but I've covered a lot of France. Um, oh well, actually, there's one more thing about France and their interest there. They get. I think this is right. I'll just double check quickly. Yeah, so they get a lot of their uranium from this region, and unique amongst other developed countries, the French get a lot of their power and a lot of their energy from nuclear power. Um, Basically, they decided to invest in nuclear power, which is a good thing and a bad thing. Um, it's good in the sense that if you compare France and Germany, the two powerhouses of the EU, if you compare them and their relationship of what happened when Russian gas was cut off, basically Germany was reliant on Russian gas, and so they struggled enormously. Whereas I think I've missed the map here. Oh, whatever. I don't know where it is. Whereas France had nuclear power, so they did not struggle. Britain was somewhere in between. Yeah, this works as a map. So Germany cut off from the gas. French had all this nuclear power, but nuclear power, it's not. I think I'm right in saying it's not renewable. I don't think it's renewable. I could be wrong, but no, but it's not renewable because there's uranium which has to be mined. So there's uranium which has to be mined, and the uranium comes from, well, I think it's 15% comes from either Mali or Niger, but it comes to the same thing across the region. They need uranium from these mines, and their power will be depleted. That is a big part of their interest in the region, which is selfish and not, it's not about protecting the people of West Africa or anything like that. So that's another important element of France, and we will add them to the diagram of interest groups. Hold on. Yep, there we go. Yes, the French flag. Yep. There we go. And we will draw a little line. And then the other key players, well, not really key, are the UK and the US. The UK, I believe, has a few military bases in Niger that were evacuated, and the US, and they more or less go under the bracket of this sort of Western coalition, so they'll go sort of behind France. US flag, and they sort of go behind France. The US had, I think, 2 or 3 drone bases in Niger, which then again had to be evacuated. They don't have like a huge role, but they do have a role in, more so than other states, in preserving a sort of global order. I mean, all 3 are members of the United Nations Security Council, along with Russia and China. That's France, UK, and America. And they, when a coup happens in West Africa, Antony Blinken's on the phone to the president. That's what happens. I'm trying to think if there's any more people we need to talk about. I think we'll go back to, yeah, there's an interesting video I'm thinking of. I think it was by Vox, I don't know how relevant it is though. Yeah, we'll talk more about this guy. No, actually, we won't. No, we'll forget about it. It's not relevant. I was thinking of talking about more in depth about Russia, but I think we should focus on Africa. Um, as for the future situation, I think this is all the interest groups. I think, yeah, that makes sense. I actually drew a little map a while ago. Hold on. I'll see if I had any more thoughts because I was thinking about this and writing it down. Um, as for the future situation, it's really hard to know at this point uh, because you know the ECOWAS have not gone to their deadline. Also, as you're in there is inevitably with all coups a transition from the outgoing administration to the incoming coup administration. So there's a big transition there. Like if you think about it, a government isn't just the president. Like it's really easy to kick out the president, but if there's you've got to go top down, make sure everyone's loyal to the coup and all that, and you've got to make sure. So it's a little while yet before we know exactly how everything will turn out. I think we should put the jihadists in the little map. We'll put them in. Jihadists, Niger, maybe. I don't know how we'll represent them exactly. I don't think they have any specific. Oh, here's one. They have a flag in this one. We will copy paste this in. We can talk about more about the jihadists, I suppose. The jihadists, I mean, simply want, as we've seen, like with the IS and Syria and Iraq, and to a certain extent the Taliban in Afghanistan, they really want an Islamic state, where they want to go in and enforce their order instead of what they would see as what is kind of a Western democratic order. It's kind of and they're attacking mainly from the east, north, and west, kind of from all directions except the south, where the most population is. But and remember, they're not just in Niger; they're everywhere across West Africa, and they're all separate groups, but they all have important roles to play. The last thing I think would be that I can't remember what I was going to say. Yes, Niger, like many of these countries across Africa, all the borders were drawn by Europeans, which means in the Berlin Conference. So a lot of these states are just a lot of tribes bungled together, which means things are difficult. Getting sort of democratic politics becomes 10 times harder, because you're not democratic politics becomes 10 times harder because all these tribal groups are tribal and partisan, and they will not tensions are higher. There's a whole added level, and I think in Nigeria in particular there are so many tribal groups that it just does make things impossible. I wonder if I should switch over to my other camera. Oh yeah, that's kind of weird, isn't it? There's a chat here. I hadn't even noticed that. Cool. Yeah, so it's complicated. The future situation, again, it's hard to know. I think I'll just move the chat down a bit. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, there we go. The future situation is complicated and it's developing, so we don't really know what's going to happen. I think what's interesting about the situation is, how does a coup develop? like all these coups. There's clearly a trend, and uh, there's coups across Africa. But really, I mean, it's a failure in democracy and the strength of the democratic institutions, because generally, when a coup happens, it means that there's an imbalance of power. I think I said earlier, the army has too much power. So if the army has too much power, then they can easily unseat a democratically elected government. So when you're looking at how to create a strong democratic country, there's a real balancing act between how you wobble it. I think Americans talk a lot about not having too big a government. They really don't want big government, because they think the government will go against them, and they really don't like the government. And that's why they want to protect their guns, because they think that if the government tries to act against them, they'll have their guns and they can shoot them. I think the only compelling argument I've seen for America's guns is that if someone tried to invade America, then they wouldn't just have to fight the army; they would have to fight everyone in America across an extremely large land area where everyone has guns. I think there's more guns in America than the population. Like there's 1.1 guns per person. But yes, back to this. If you're going to balance the democratic institutions, you're going to need to balance it so that, number one, you're going to have a strong enough government so that it doesn't get unseated by the military, for example, or actually in America's case again, by a minority of people who are not the democratic majority. But on the flip side of that, if you have a democratic majority and incumbent government who's refusing to leave, then you need strong enough democratic institutions and strong enough involvement of the people to be able to strong enough involvement of the people to come in and make sure that government isn't exploiting the democratic system. And a lot of that, of preventing that exploitation, could come through, properly writing the constitution right. But it's quite hard, and it's very hard to change things in a constitution, as we learned from America again. So it's really interesting. But I suppose moving back to the African context, everything is 10 times harder than in Western countries, because there is pretty much zero precedent. And in fact, the precedent is for unseating the democratically elected governments. And what we're saying about Niger in this particular case was that it was not. It had that peaceful turnover, and yet it's fallen to a coup, which is really disappointing. So yeah, and I do think across the world, there's like a question. There's the borders, the question of how democracy functions, is kind of getting stress tested almost, with a lot of populist leaders. I think we've seen the back of a few of them. We've seen the back of Jair Bolsonaro in Brazil, for example. I think, hopefully. And we've seen the back of Boris Johnson here. But it's really hard. And there's still people like Donald Trump around, and who would threaten the democracy. The last thing is, I think, if you're going to balance the democratic institutions, you're really balancing 4 things. You're balancing the government power. You're balancing government power. You're balancing military power. You don't want the military to be too strong, and you want it to be accountable to the people. But also, and you, the judiciary, who are oft not talked about, but the judiciary, essentially the strongest example I can think of that right now is the Supreme Court, where the Supreme Court, there is an imbalance of power with the Supreme Court and how the Supreme Court functions, where they're able to overwrite democratic decisions, basically. Like everybody, there's the majority of people in America are in favor of abortion, and yet the Supreme Court can overrule that. Then that's undemocratic. That's gonna erase and set a bad precedent for America's democratic stability. And the last one is the people. Right, it's the people. So the people power. If the people have too much power, in the case of America, in which they can wield guns individually, then a minority can unseat the democratically elected government. But if the people have too little power, then they can't unseat a government who are taking too much power. Yes, hello. I am live. Yes. So I think it's incredibly interesting about all this and how you do kind of balance all these powers. It's bloody hard. I did just talk about one map for a long time. I don't even know how long I've been going, but I did talk 50 minutes. So I've been talking about one map for 50 minutes. The other maps I want to look at, if I can recall, I think I have a list here. Hold on, bear with. Yeah, so we had ECOWAS. Yeah, okay, we'll go to a couple more maps. So I'll switch over again, and we'll go to this here. Right, so we're looking at Johannes and Niger. But anyway, we're gonna move on. We're gonna close all these tabs, all of them. Goodbye. And we're gonna talk about China, because yeah, China is interesting. And the first map is I might struggle to find this map. Countries of Belt and Road Initiative. No, I don't want that. I kind of want a Wikipedia map because I like the Wikipedia maps. They're good. This might have a map. Belt and Road Initiative. Basically, the Belt and Road Initiative it's essentially I'm gonna move the chat down a bit again. Hold on. Yeah, we'll just move it right there. Yeah. Belt and Road Initiative, as it says on Wikipedia right there, is basically China's global infrastructure development strategy to invest in more than 150 countries and international organizations. And if you know your geography, you know that there's only like roughly 196 countries. So that is a lot of countries. There's a lot of countries that China has invested in. And some have criticized it for being a form of neocolonialism. This is an alright map, but I don't think it shows the entire extent of it. Like, this doesn't show all 150 countries. But I think one of the most significant things about this map here... Yeah, so these are members of the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, which is a part of the Belt and Road Initiative. I mean, it's all about building infrastructure to build China's soft power, to expand their influence across the world. As I know from my A-level geography, that in Kiribati, which is a relatively small island nation here, we don't have time to go into all the Pacific Islands stuff, but they're kind of strategically significant because they're close to China and all that. But, you know, China trying to interfere there, and they want military bases because US traditionally has a lot of power in the Pacific, so they're trying to get military bases in return for money for the Kiribati to help fight against rising sea levels from climate change, and China are willing to offer help that other countries wouldn't. And it puts poorer countries in kind of a difficult position, because you're deciding between sort of giving up democratic freedoms, which China might impose, or you're giving up to kind of quite an aggressive power in return for money. Now, obviously, you can flip this on the US and say, yeah, US have kind of done the same thing in the past. But I mean, the US is pretty bad as well. It doesn't make China good, or they're both bad. But China right now are doing this significantly in a bad way. So this is just the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. So it doesn't cover everything. I'm going to try and find a better map. But I think key things here is that Sri Lanka was a key one. I think, if I recall, they had a military base. And the other thing, the really key thing here, is that a lot of so-called Western countries, are in this bank, or as of, I don't know what date, someone may have withdrawn, hopefully, but probably not. UK is in this bank. Portugal, France, all these EU countries, European countries, the Nordic countries, Australia, New Zealand, who probably shouldn't be part of it and shouldn't be boosting China's soft power. There's these what are they called? I think they're called Confucius Institutes I spelled that wrong, in the UK, but maybe across the world. Yeah, it must be across the world, which try to promote Chinese language, and these were used a lot. They're very big in the UK. Maybe we can find them. Let's see, Confucius, Bangor University. So a lot of UK universities will give in. I mean, UK universities are terrible for this. They will give in to oppressive powers like China, like the UAE, and to a certain extent Malaysia as well. It's the ones I can think of off the top of my head. Certain universities will give in to put campuses, put spending, because the UK universities are some of the most sought after in the world. Like, they are, for the UK's size, comparison to America, they are they're huge. They have a huge influence. There's a lot of international students who make an awful lot of. They put an awful lot. The universities in the UK make an awful lot of money from international students. So it's kind of crazy. But I think there was. I could be wrong, but I recall a situation where the Confucius Institutes in the UK were kind of being used as sort of a projection of the sort of Chinese secret service, basically, to control Chinese expats and stuff like that, which is not good. Maybe it's in criticism. I don't really want to read all this, but at the end of the day, these universities in the UK and in the US give in to China and these other rich but ultimately bad countries. Bad is a terrible way to put it, but these bad countries, just for the money from the international students and the money from the countries. I kind of got off topic here. Yeah, Belt and Road Initiative. I don't really want to read all this, but you get the gist. Let's see if there's a better map. Yeah, here we go. This is good. This is really good. Okay. So, as you can see, that is all of, except for Eswatini. All of Africa except Eswatini. Pretty much all of Asia, except for India, which is obviously significant, but India doesn't really, and Japan. They don't need the help. I don't know why North Korea is in yellow. I'm not sure exactly. North Korea tend to have quite a close relationship with China anyway, so maybe it's not really part of it. Significant parts of Europe. And, these are not... The Belt and Road Initiative, it's all under Xi Jinping's kind of vision. Who's the leader of China. All under his vision And the Belt and Road Initiative is, as you can see, it's I don't know what MOU stands for, but it's all different, uh, infrastructure projects, and which in China is part of one central thing, but for another country, it's just like, oh, this is just an independent Chinese firm offering bridge building services, for example. And they'll be like, this is really cheap, this is really cool, we'll take that. Thank you, China. We love you, China, because you're giving us cheap infrastructure. And it's all under sort of independent. But of course, in China, they're not independent because they're all under the Chinese government. And it's all part of this Chinese government scheme. So it's kind of misleading. So I'm assuming the MOU is like, signed MOU. It's not, there's no, you can't sign up to the Belt and Road Initiative. Is that, at least that's my understanding. Oh no, maybe they can, a memorandum. I don't know. But that's my understanding of how it usually works. So a butt ton of countries. And I think I'm going to compare this with another interesting map. A map I find interesting in a minute. Which I will show you. What's the Asian? Okay. Yes, this is the Asian Infrastructure Development Bank again. Interesting. Silk Road Fund. Yeah, all these different schemes. Yeah, look at these. All these different schemes. The new Eurasian Land Bridge. These kind of, so all these different things, these land corridors. And obviously it's called the Silk Road based on the Silk Road, which was incredibly significant as an economic corridor in medieval age of times. So there's, I mean, it's huge, it's a huge thing, but it's really worrying that all these countries, I mean, all of them, and then if you include the Asian Infrastructure Development Bank, that includes the UK, France, Germany, Nordic countries. I can't remember if it includes the US, but it's a lot of countries. Now, I think we'll move on from China. I could go on for a long time about China, but ultimately, I don't think. Yes, memorandum of understanding. So yeah, it's interesting. We will move on though. We will move on to. This is still China related, but it is not Belt and Road Initiative. It is countries that recognize that recognize Taiwan. Now, the way you recognize Taiwan is, let's go. I think we'll visit this Wikipedia page. I think this might be smart. Yes. So this is going to be kind of a little hard to understand at first, but I'll try to find a really simplified map. That's a lot of countries. This is good. This is very good. So, we will go and we will zoom in here. So, this is the first map. I think you can see this, hopefully. Yes, you can see this. So, this is the first map. The year is 1949. And what you need to understand is there are two Chinas, and there still are two Chinas. Most people think that Taiwan is called Taiwan officially. That's not true. Taiwan is actually called the Republic of China, which is weird. And then the China you normally think of is actually the People's Republic of China. So it's the People's Republic of China versus the Republic of China, the PRC versus the ROC. That's how it's usually characterized. And I'm not going to go too deep into it, but basically, the pre-1949, there are a bunch of the leaders of China who were sort of democratic, but not really. They weren't that good guys, led by Chiang Kai-shek. They were, that was the Republic of China, and they controlled all of China, right? Then there was a communist uprising, kind of similar to Russia. They were inspired by Russia. Mao Zedong was part of it, so he was in Beijing or Shanghai learning about communism, and then it spread, and they went into hiding here, and they started a civil war. But then World War II started, right? And the Japanese came in, and they kind of more or less united to fight the Japanese. But then straight after, Communist Party takes over, and the existing government from China fled to Taiwan, right? So they fled to Taiwan and said, this is ours, we're keeping this, but we lay a claim on the entirety of China. We don't accept that the Communist Party have taken over China. So as you can see, I believe, yes, so every country in blue recognizes Taiwan as the rightful China. So that's the entirety of the Western world. Everyone in grey don't care. But everyone in red, which includes Mongolia, Russia, and the Warsaw Pact countries, as you can see, because this is the start of the Cold War, they obviously all recognize communist China because they're communists. But things start to change. Now, there's a couple things that change. Number one is that Chiang Kai-shek dies. I don't know when he dies. Let's quickly work it out. There's a spider on my roof. Shut up. There's no spider on my roof. There is no... There's no... Shut up. I've had issues before. There's been spiders there before. Oh, that was... Oh, this is not good memories. Okay, where was I? Yes, Chiang Kai-shek dies in 1975. I'm sure... yeah, so he served as the leader of the Republic of China from 1928 to his death in 1975. So, why did I open up? I don't even know if you can see that. Well, maybe not. Yes, here we go. So, he doesn't die until, like, here. But obviously, you can see things are changing. But ultimately, after he dies, Taiwan becomes a proper democracy because he was basically a dictator. But things start to improve after he dies. So a couple of things start to change. Number one, as you can see, Cuba becomes communist. And the influence of China as a power. I mean, obviously, if you're looking at it if you're looking at it from a purely who is China perspective, right, then it's kind of obvious who is China, right? Because they control the entire landmass, right? And slowly countries are kind of figuring out, like, these guys are kind of control everything, you guys have so far failed to take back your country that you call your own, so we're switching over. So significant countries like India and the UK have switched over by now. Indonesia, a couple more African countries are becoming involved. Interestingly, these countries... Actually, that might be still under French rule. No, maybe it's not. I can't figure it. No, I don't think so. No, they're independent by now. These countries have come in. They were grey before, but they've come in supporting Taiwan, which is interesting. And that tends to stick, interestingly, in Africa. 1971. As you can see, things have changed. Most of Europe now is under China. But this is the point between this map and this map where Taiwan probably becomes democratic. And the problem with this is Taiwan, from an outsider's perspective today, you think of Taiwan as Taiwan, not the Republic of China. It doesn't really cross your mind. Everyone in Taiwan, I think the common person in Taiwan would think of themselves, they would say, wouldn't say they're Taiwanese, but they would have more identity with Taiwan, and the idea of claiming the rest of China is not as important because it's kind of infeasible. Whereas for the People's Republic of China, it is absolutely about claiming Taiwan because they see it as part of the historical China, just as they see Tibet as part of China, Manchuria and Xinjiang. So they see it as part of the historical China. As you can see, more countries are becoming involved in global affairs, more African countries getting involved. You see this kind of belt of countries here. Nigeria is flipped over, but Niger, Chad, South American countries have got involved as well. So they're starting to take sides. And the key thing you have to understand at this point is that the PRC, the People's Republic of China, mainland China, will only open diplomatic relations with you if you don't have a Taiwanese embassy, right? So you can't have... If you want diplomatic relationships with mainland China, you can't have diplomatic relationships with China. No, sorry, with with Taiwan China. You can't. It's very complicated. All these different Chinas. But I think you understand. Yeah. So yes, things are changing. The year is 1989. There are few countries now. We have South Africa, we have Saudi Arabia, these Central American countries, these Caribbean islands, and Paraguay. Paraguay is key. And a couple of these Pacific islands and South Korea. South Korea obviously have an interest in this because North Korea and China are allies. South Korea don't want China getting influence, so they rather, you know. But you can see it's a gradual failing of this. And what's ironic about this is that at this point, again, you're really choosing between the economic. China is really a rising power at this point. Mainland China is a massive rising power. They have an awful lot to offer. A lot of people underestimated China, but it's huge population and it became the manufacturing giant of the world. And a lot of countries are starting to depend on them. Chad, it looks like it flip-flopped. So, recognize them, that didn't. To recognize them again. I'm getting really thirsty. Good. This might be after Tiananmen Square, possibly. Like a couple countries flipped over, you can see. A couple African countries. More Central American countries as well. Which is interesting. Yeah, because China have perpetrated a lot of shocking things. I mean, even here and here, you know, this is Cultural Revolution time when people were suppressed and killed, and 1 million people were killed in the Cultural Revolution, and the Great Leap Forward before that was a complete shambles of famine and death. But yeah, it's interesting. And now we get to more or less the current day. This is 2018. But things have changed since 2018, I believe. I found this pretty disturbing. Somewhere here there's a list of how each country... Basically, this is a very long list. Ah, yes, here we go. So... no, this is wrong. Yes. States formally recognizing the Republic of China now recognize the People of the Republic of China. So states that used to recognize Taiwan as the power are now recognizing China. And obviously this changes, you know. So we have, this is going from 1950. But it's less relevant here. Burkina Faso, interestingly, again, flip-flopped. Cambodia flip-flopped. But what I'm really interested in this list is who changed recently. If we sort this, yeah, this is good. So who changed recently? So we go down the list. You can see that around here, yeah, you don't get many flippers here. But over here, we're starting to see African countries, Asian, Caribbean countries slowly starting to trickle away. And the most recent, which was in the news, was Honduras this year, who said, after many years of supporting Taiwan, no, we're not going to do it. But you see, it's part of all these Central American countries, which used to be a kind of united bulwark against a bullock or whatever, against China, have now given in because the cost of not having Chinese diplomatic relations is higher, you know, than choosing to recognize Taiwan. So it's a shame, basically. And basically we're left with, if we go up to one of these maps, yeah, so the countries in light blue, we've got Paraguay, we've got Guatemala, Belize, Haiti, tiny countries which I can't identify, Vatican City, of course, and kind of a few countries across here in Eswatini. Tiny countries. And they're tiny because they're so small, they can afford not to have diplomatic relationship with the People's Republic of China. And it's a real shame that more countries have not started recognizing Taiwan, given how things are looking. On the flip side of that, you could argue that having diplomatic relationships with China is kind of important if China, like it's more important for you as a country, not just economically, but militarily and in terms of defense and stuff. But for small countries like South American countries, for African countries, yeah, it's sad. It's kind of depressing. I'm not gonna lie. It's kind of worrying as well because it's quite possible we could see a conflict in Taiwan and between China and Taiwan. But it's very early days for that, so it's kind of hard to say. But I think this could be a significant part of the future. What have we got next? Yes, okay. I think we're gonna move on from maps. I've had enough of maps. I kind of want to... Yeah. I kind of want to do some YouGov polls. So, YouGov is a polling website. They do lots of polls. You can actually do polls and get money. Not very much. You can see this is my account here. And I have 1,000 points. And I need 3,900 more to get a £50 voucher. Which is pretty good, but it takes a while to do a lot of surveys. And you have to give a lot of your personal data away, but whatever. And there's these daily questions, which you don't get points for, but they're kind of interesting. Usually they're interesting. This one doesn't look interesting at all. On a conventional toaster, what do you think the numbers on the dial represent? Oh. See, I think it's the first one. But because they're asking the question... No, I'm sorry. It is the minutes. It's the minutes. Why would it be the heat? Why would it be the heat? It can't be the heat. It is not the heat. It's not. It's the numbers of minutes. That's what it is. Well, we'll see in a minute when we see the results. If you were to go out in the evening, would you prefer to avoid the crowds, be in the crowds both equally? Probably both equally. I don't really care, to be honest. It's just a kind of... These aren't very good questions. Normally they're... Oh, God, what just happened? There's a sound. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Yes! I have a follower. Very good. Very good. Yes, very good, very good, very good. Okay. Yes, both equally. They're not good. They're not good questions. Usually they're more interesting. Oh, see, this one's boring as well. Normally, they're more interesting than this. Think about alarm clocks. Do you use an alarm clock on your phone or an actual alarm clock to wake up in the morning? Something else. I wake up to the radio coming on. I have a radio beside me and I have it coming on. Which is, I find, less jarring. Although sometimes I sleep through it. But, yeah. Okay, I think we're finished now, and we can see the results. Okay, so, yes. Yeah, I mean, I kind of expect that. Yeah. I mean, again, it's not very interesting. Normally, they're more interesting. I'm going to say that they're more interesting, usually. This is not a good representation. Avoid the crowd. That actually surprised me. Really? That actually does surprise me. That's kind of interesting, that most people would avoid the crowds. I would have thought most people would be more kind of want to be in the thriving city life, but apparently not. And remember, these are representative. They're weighted to be representative of the UK population, right? I don't know why they're saying GB. That doesn't make any sense. The UK population, because Great Britain is only the mainland UK. But yeah, so it's weighted for I'm assuming gender, race, that kind of thing. I think if voting has a thing, they usually balance for that. Like what party affiliation. Wait, now I'm worried. I'm thinking, right, okay. Toaster. Because I think a toaster, I know what a toaster looks like, but I'm worried I have the wrong because I'm sure I'm right. It's minutes. Surely, why are there no images? There we go, images. Show me images. Right, okay, we want a really basic toaster. This one. I think I have this toaster. It doesn't cook. It doesn't have 4 slices though. It only has 2, and it's a really old version. Oh no, it doesn't have 2 dials even either. Wait, what? Why are there 2 dials? Oh god. Now I'm really worried. Because that's got a thing on it. And I think my one has a thing on it. Oh, Christ. No, I want toaster 1 dial. This is how we... Because what was the question again? It was... What do you think the number's on the dial? So there's only 1 dial. I think there's only... It has to be 1 dial. 1 dial. Show me one with 1 dial. Oh, this is painful. This is so painful. That's minutes, right? That only makes... Why would you... Because on my toaster, it goes back as if it's tracking back minutes. Why? I think they're wrong. They're wrong. It's not level of heat exposure, because if it was level of heat exposure, the heat would be slowly decreasing throughout the toast. Unless that's what you want in a toaster. Oh, God. Okay. I'm having a panic attack. What do the numbers on the toaster mean? I'm scared to look. Wait, is that Tom Scott? Ah! It's Tom Scott! I didn't know he made a video on toasters. I mean, we can't watch it because he will copyright strike me. But that is incredible. I'm going to watch that after. Why is he doing a video about toasters? That's intriguing. Unfortunately, I can't watch it. But, okay, here we go. No, I'm not, I'm more interested in the University College of London one. Now, why would they make a video, not a video, a article on toasters? Why? Okay. Okay, here we go. Yes! The numbers in or on the toaster regulate how long, why is that not highlighting? How long the bread is going to be toasted for. That's it. It's the timer. It's a timer. That's what it is. I have a follower or something. Or maybe not. There was some sort of notification. I have no idea what that was. I do have a follower. Let's go. Okay. Excellent. So, it's numbers. I'm right. All of these people are wrong. The majority of the UK population thinks that toasters go by heat, and that the thing unless they all are rich and have 2 dial toasters. Like, come on, Jesus. 10% couldn't even be bothered to make an educated guess. And who are the people who said something else? That makes no sense. Let's go to the UK homepage, because there are more interesting polls than this. This was not interesting. It was fun, but it was not interesting. I also think it might be getting a bit dark. I think I need better lighting. How do I... No, that's too bright. That's, like, marginally better. Maybe I could switch over to my second camera. Oh god, the chat's in the way. Oh, shite. Okay, 1 minute. 1 minute. I don't even know how it looks. Bye, chat. You're going down there. Ugh. Very good. Very good. Okay, I'm not sure how I feel about the second camera. It feels weird. I don't like it, and the lighting's worse. Well, actually, the camera's better, but the lighting feels worse. I prefer it when it's more pixelated. Yo! Okay, right. Okay, back to the thing at hand. Yeah, Barbie seems interesting. Let's look at Barbie. This, I don't know why. Oh, this is like, okay, so this is one of the classic YouGov polls. They have like fame, have you heard of it? Popularity, do you like it? Do you dislike it? So this is Barbie, not the Barbie movie, I'm assuming. So is there more information than this? No, that's it. Yeah, I mean, I don't find that particularly interesting. I would have thought it would be higher, given how good the movie was, but I don't know. Let's go back. I want to look at some of the more political ones. So, ooh, let's go straight into. Let's look at Rishi Sunak and let's compare him with Keir Starmer. I think that's a solid thing to do if it loads. Yeah. So 90%, 6% of them have heard of him. Who are the 4% who haven't? That's what I'm wondering. And yeah, he's disliked. Quite a bit. Can we look at more data? Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. Okay, let's have a look here. Oh, wow. Boomers don't like him. Less than everybody else. That's kind of surprising. That's kind of surprising. And, okay, that's disappointing. That's kind of, yeah. That people haven't heard of him there. That's kind of disappointing. Is that it? Oh, well, let's compare it with Keir Starmer. Okay, we're going to look at them side by side. We're going to look at, okay. So, 29% of people like Keir Starmer. 28% of people like Rishi Sunak. That's the same. That's like 1% higher. That's not... That's really bad. And the disliked is 43%, 37. That's only a 6% difference. Like, that's not... That's terrible. That's really bad. Like, okay, so we're expecting Keir Starmer to be the incoming Prime Minister. But he's not liked much more than Rishi Sunak. Maybe that's just people not liking politicians. Maybe we can compare him... I don't want to look at Jeremy Corbyn. Let's look at Andy Burnham. Okay, so a lot of people haven't heard of Andy Burnham. He's the mayor of, I want to say Manchester. And he's very popular, is my understanding. He's more popular than most politicians. Yeah, mayor of Greater Manchester. So he's Labour, quite popular. Sadiq Khan, his popularity might have gone down with the ULEZ thing, but... Yeah, people don't like him. I'm assuming that's because of ULEZ, because I think before this, quite a lot of people did like him. Ed Balls, the Strictly Come Dancing sensation. No, that's closer than I thought. I think people just don't like politicians, so maybe that's what explains it. But the difference between Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer is not great. What should we look at now? Both of these look interesting. Let's look at government approval. I think that's an interesting metric to look at. Yes, Rishi with Barbie. 1 minute. Let's do that. Yes, so we have Barbie. 35% of people like Barbie. Yeah, people prefer Barbie to Rishi Sunak. I think I prefer Barbie to Rishi Sunak. I don't particularly like Barbie, but I'd take Barbie every day over Rishi Sunak, for sure. Definitely. Yeah. Okay. Government approval, if it's loaded. No, it hasn't. Yes, it has. Okay, right. Okay, oh wow. Okay, so this is basically the entire time of the government. Yeah, it is, since the coalition. Wow, okay. So, there's a lot to analyze here. So, at the top we have disapproval. At the bottom we have approval. And in grey we have don't know. So, I think we should have a look at what key events have happened. Because there's obviously key spikes here. And I want to see what has happened in these times. So, 23rd of October 2022. I'm assuming that's Truss. Right? When did Truss become p.m. Yeah, it's Truss. It's Truss. It's Truss. It's definitely Truss. Wait, where? Go away, Rishi Sunak. So that huge spike in disapproval and dip in approval, and indeed dip of don't know. So people were more, people knew what they thought was there. There's a couple more recent spikes, like here. So I'm assuming that's when Sunak sort of came in as that kind of approval spike. This disapproval, I'm not sure. We won't go too deep. To be honest, I can't keep track of time. I've lost track of time completely, but I'm assuming all that is due to immigration stuff. But I don't know. It's gone up recently though. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's people who like the immigration stuff. I don't know. We'll go back in time though. So we had Truss, and before Truss, Truss was put in September. So I'm assuming where there's a little dip in disapproval because Johnson was out, maybe. And then it went quickly up because she crashed the entire economy. So we got January 2022. You see, this is really testing me. I don't know what happened in January 2022. This looks significant, though. When did the Queen die? No, the Queen died around in Trusses. No, it doesn't have a name. I'm trying to think of significant British events. 3rd of May. Okay. No, this is really testing my knowledge. So, pandemic was from 2020. Okay. So, yeah, this is interesting. A lot of disapproval, right? So Brexit happens. Yeah, so Theresa May. Boris Johnson comes in somewhere around here, right? Like somewhere around here. I don't know when exactly. Then there's an election, Boris Johnson calls a general election, wins a chonker of a majority, and I'm assuming, yeah, so he wins his majority back here. That's when disapproval ratings start to go right down. People are like, wow, this is hopeful. This is a huge Conservative majority. We have hope for the future. We hope that Brexit will get done. Brexit gets done here, somewhere around here. It's January 2020, right? I think that's right. January 2020, Brexit get done. Again, disapproval rating, like a lot of the British public, it's incredibly polarizing, but a lot of the British public really wanted Brexit done, as we could see with the previous election. That was just how it was. Then COVID strikes, like around here, like somewhere around here. Now the interesting thing about this is that, you can see the disapproval rating still going right down. The approval ratings go right up. Crises, contrary to what you would think necessarily, crises help a government. If the government manages to deal with the crisis well and within good time, then their approval ratings, they will go up. You know, that's how it works. But they did not handle it very well. They probably didn't have much choice at the end of the day because they had to put a lockdown in. But, you know, as we go on, disapproval ratings start to climb, and across we go. I'm imagining it went down in Christmas slightly because people were like... Actually, I don't know why it went down so much. What happens? Why did they like the government here? There's something significant happened here which I'm missing. I don't understand. I'm probably being really stupid. Let's look up April 21 British politics. Unless someone can help me in chat, but I'm not sure what happened to have such a hike in approval ratings. Let's look at images, maybe. Boris Johnson, further lockdown. Maybe it was just people optimistic after Christmas. See, I'm really confused now. Oh, hang on. I'm having memories now. April 2021. We got out of lockdown then. Yes, people got out of lockdown then. That's what it was. Lockdown ended in April 2021. And people thought that was, like, for good. Yes, that's what it was. That is what it was. Brilliant. Okay, so lockdown ends here. Then slow disapproval builds because of Johnson, I'm assuming. Cocking up, classic. Partygate, all that stuff happens here. I'm surprised there's no massive spike for like the first Partygate revelations, but I suppose it was more slow in building. I don't know when it started, to be honest, but yeah. And then Johnson was, as we've already gone through that. I don't think we'll go back before coronavirus because, I mean, there's the whole May period. We'll go 2016 Brexit referendum was around here, I think, somewhere. I don't know. It's interesting that, yeah, I think it probably would have been in. I think it was probably around spring. I could be wrong though. This spike, that don't know, not sure. I don't know enough about this period to know. I think that we're done with government approval. The other one I was interested in is British mood, which I think in some areas we'll be able to track similar events and see how the mood is affected. Let's not look at all this. Let's keep it really basic and just look at happy and sad. Yeah. Well, we can add in more metrics later. But we will go. This only goes from 2019. So 2019, happy, 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 happy. Really happy, I'm assuming, because it's Christmas and Brexit is getting done, probably. Lockdown. Wow, okay. Yeah, big spike. People are not happy. People are not happy. Then we go rise. Bit of resilience, but not as happy as they were before. I'm trying to think about the dates we just discussed, but I'm blanking. Events happened. We understand. 18th of January 2021, big dip because we went into lockdown again. I remember this. So we went into lockdown again. Happiness levels rise because lockdowns are ending. Don't know. What's here? March 2022. Oh my god. I'm trying to remember things. I don't know what happened there. March 20... We probably just discussed this and I've forgotten. We did. Surely we did. I think we did. Or maybe we didn't. I can't remember. That's so annoying. Okay, well... I'm wondering how big an effect politics had on this. There's a big sadness spike here, which is, yes, that's the Queen's death. So a lot of people are sad. I think what we should compare here is actually age. If we do only 18 to 24 and then compare out changes, yeah, it's completely different. Number one, they seem happier. Actually, I'm not sure how to... Yeah, they seem happier on the whole, I think. But you can see that's not as big as a spike compared to the average. If we compare that with 65 plus, I'm assuming that's going to be a bigger spike because they were more sad about the Queen. I'm assuming. Yeah, it's huge. Yeah, it's absolutely massive. They seem to be more emotional, though. They seem to have bigger swings. So, okay, we really need to... I swear I said this, what happened in 2022. You know, we're looking it up. March 2022, British... It's probably really obvious. Well, bloody hell. Let's just look at this Wikipedia page. We're on March. Cut in fuel duty. I doubt it was that big. Hold on. What? Oh, no, that's not relevant. Photo ID, photo security. I mean, it must be another event then. I'm confused. Wait, I feel like my brain is getting boggled. I'm not exactly sure what this is. Johnson. So Johnson's in power now. What the fuck happened? Why was everyone so sad? Am I being stupid? I think I'm being stupid, but I still can't work out why. I think we should leave that. I think we should compare another thing. Uh, I'd be intrigued to know, how do we neutralize that? How do we... I don't want to look at all adults. Yeah, there we go. If we go by politics and look at the Queen's death, if we look at conservatives, actually no, I don't think that's the best measure. I think Remain versus Leave is where we'll see the real spikes. Yeah, so this is Remain. Yeah, small spike for the Queen's death. They're also really upset about lockdown, like really upset. Compare that to Leave. Actually, they're pretty upset with the lockdown as well. I think everyone was upset. And the Queen's death was more impactful, like a lot more impactful. Does that say something about the country? Probably. What happened here? What was it? Partygate? When did Partygate happen? Maybe. Because it's from November to 25th of May. But I don't think that's what it is. I think it was an external event. I've got it! It's the Russian invasion of Ukraine! That's what it was. That's what it was. That is what it was. Yes, I am... That is brilliant. Okay. Yes. Okay, this explains a lot, right? It happened then. It was like February 2022. Yes. Excellent. Yeah, so it doesn't approve... Yes. Fabulous. Let's compare that. I don't know how people feel about this. They're sad. The Remainers seem more sad. Am I wrong? Yeah. So Remainers seem more sad about that. Let's look at age for that one, because I'm kind of intrigued. Let's go 18 to 24. Where we go? February, March 2022. Ooh. See, that's disappointing. It's not a big spike. It is not, like, compared to the other spikes, it's not a big spike. I think a lot of people, like our age would be, or my age would be kind of not as engaged, I suppose, and less affected. Whereas older people, I'm guessing, I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing they would be more impacted by it because they've seen more wars. They know the significance of Ukraine and what Russia and the Cold War and everything. Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. That's really interesting. Even if we go, I mean, we're not just going to look at the extremes. Yeah, it's bigger for 50 to 64. 25 to 49, that's a big age range. Smaller, 18 to 24. Actually, in all fairness, it's bigger than 25 to 49. So, not terrible. Social grade, I don't even know what all of those mean. Yeah. Okay, let's go back to all adults and let's add in some ones. I think we should look at apathetic. Because I feel like, yeah, I mean, it's going to be highly impacted by lockdown. I mean, you know, it's pretty much the same thing, but I think the key thing is optimistic. I think that's an interesting one. Yeah, people weren't optimistic. People were optimistic here. Which is interesting. Because we just gone into lockdown there. But people were more and more optimistic about getting out. And then they all got out and the happiness increased. Here's Ukraine invasion. Dip in optimism. Why was it so low here, though? Like, people... I'm assuming this is cost of living. Because if you compare it to... Like, that, it seems like a steady level there. Like, that's unaffected by lockdowns. And that is higher. Like, that's over 20%. This kind of This is all below 20%. And that's not like affected by like one event in particular, like these spikes here. That's like one like fairly unfluctuating line, which is disappointing. I haven't looked at gender. I don't think it's that relevant though. I don't see it being changed that much. Okay, so women care more, basically. Yeah, yeah, women care more. Come on, Jesus. Right. Stressed. Which one's that? Is that the top one? Yeah, that's the top one. Wow, yeah, stress fluctuates a lot. And it's also high. Like, if people... I'd be interested to see what the top emotions are here. If we put all of them on... No, not other. But, like, what's this pink one? Is this one happiness? So happiness is top. But stress is high, like, consistently. That is stress. Yeah, I think that's stress. So happiness and stress are, like, consistently high. Lonely is an interesting one. We'll look at lonely and bored, because I feel like those are the most kind of lockdowny feelings. Maybe not. Hold on, let's just look at bored. Yeah, bored increases like a lot. Let's remove these guys. Look at these boredom spikes. Yeah. I mean, I bet you there's nothing. It's unheard of that they would be this big. It really gives you a good outline of the pandemic as well. This particular boredom curve. Like, if you're going up, that's the pandemic. Going along, that's the pandemic. That's really good. I like that one. Lonely, we can look at it its own. Yeah, not very good. Scared. Wow, okay. Yeah. So people were obviously more scared with the first one than the second one. This one, I'm assuming, is, yeah, it's Ukraine. People were scared by Ukraine. But people were more scared by the pandemic, which is, I guess, makes sense because it's more immediate. I'm sure if you did this poll in Ukraine, you'd find that more people would be scared here than the pandemic. I think that makes sense. I think, unless there's more polls, I think we might be drawing to a close here. Unless there's a few more little polls that might be interesting. Then I think we're pretty much done there. We'll just have a quick, actually, immigration. We'll look at quick look at immigration and Twitter. I feel like that could be interesting. And we'll open up the news because I just want to have a quick look. Just check I'm not completely outdated on Niger, for example, which I spent like an hour talking about. You know, yeah, we got the migrant barge moved off the barge. I heard about that. So they've been moved off the barge because they screwed up, basically. I heard that the firefighters union said that there's an unsafe amount of people on the barge because the government put a bunch of extra bunk beds on the barge, which they shouldn't have. So it's over capacity and it's shite. Yes, there's bacteria in the water, I believe. Ali G, Chris, yeah. Good, he's going to jail. Absolute scammer. Oh, God. Yeah, actually, I haven't heard about this. I'm kind of interested. That's in Hawaii. We'll look at that in a minute. Yeah, wildfires. Wow, okay. Yes, this is huge. This is very interesting. I'll talk about that. Why not? Yeah, I think that'll do. So I haven't missed anything big. That's good. We could... No, well, I think that covers everything. Right, okay, we'll just we'll give a really quick look at these polls. Wow, okay, this is a proper issue, though. No, well, we'll not go into that. We might do that in another stream. Twitter! Yo! Okay. I'm surprised more people don't dislike it, because I fucking hate it. Like, And Elon Musk. Oh! Elon Musk. Let's do it. Here we go. Give me your wisdom, YouGov. Yeah, that's right. Nobody likes him. Well, some people do. Psychos. But, yeah, I like that. That is good. That is good to see. That is good to see. Okay. This I'm interested in, and I don't really know anything about, so I'm gonna have a quick look. Wildfires. Is this from a volcano? Or is it just wildfires? Is climate change wildfires? Hold on, I need a better summary. Hawaii. Okay, I think it is wildfires. I think it's just climate change wildfires. Wind-driven fires. God. Major disaster declaration. Okay. Yeah, that is not good. God, right. I think I get the idea. Let's talk quickly about the PSNI, because I know a bit about this. So, PSNI... PSNI... they had... they leaked something by accident, basically. On the website, whatdotheyknow.com, which is basically a website where you make a freedom of information request. And a freedom of information request is where you ask a public institution to make something public that should be public. So if you want to know something that by legally should be public, you just ask. You can put it to the organization directly, but what this website does is it does it automatically. So I can make a request here to, the Ministry of Defense. And I could say, for example, this might make me sign in or something. Yeah, I can make the Ministry of Defense, I don't know, the Defense Safety Authority, for example. And I could just ask, could you release the stats on your spending in the last quarter or something? And that's probably, they would probably reveal that. Maybe they wouldn't, I don't know. But that's an example of something you would say. What someone made a request to the PSNI, who are on here, the police service of Northern Ireland, and they said, could you give a breakdown of your how many officers at each station? I think that was the request. I could be wrong, but and there's 27 followers. That was 25 yesterday, so that's interesting. But and they made a request, and you can see an example. Here's a we'll go to a successful one. So here's a freedom of information request on the transgender strip and intimate search policy. So it's very simple. Someone asks confirmation of whether or not have you adopted the NPCC guideline approved on the transgenders will also be able to strip search members of the opposite sex, right? So the PSNI has not adopted the guideline. So this is the example of what you get back. This is what the PSNI sends back. They've got the logo at the top. They say, yeah, this is, and there's a bunch of requests, a bunch of answers, right? Simple. But what they did is some junior person in the administration basically said in the Freedom of Information request, when they were making the Freedom of Information request, along with it, I believe they sent, I think it was a Google Sheets document or something like that, along with the Freedom of Information request, so that, and in that Google Sheet document was a list of everyone's names in every single person in the police force and what station were they at, and it was their last names and their initials. Now, a lot of people have been saying, well, this isn't this significant. It is significant for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's significant for people with unusual surnames. This means that they could be attacked, and if a person who wants to attack the police, which is significant in Northern Ireland's case because there are a lot of Republicans and there are already some making threats online, Republicans who would want to attack the police, as we've seen with the attack of that police officer of, I can't remember his name, John Caldwell in Omagh, who shot John Caldwell in front of a bunch of children, I believe. Yeah, something like that. And this makes them incredibly vulnerable. And, if someone knows what station they're at, so then they can follow them home, etc. The second thing is, simultaneously, not long after this, is that the electoral register was leaked. Or not leaked, but it was hacked and then leaked. So the electoral register, this particular, I won't go into it too deep, but basically the long short of it is it had everyone who registered to vote and who said they didn't want their data available from I think it was 2016 to now. So everyone who registered to vote, but in that time, and all their addresses on it. Now there is, if you're a PSNI officer, you might just choose to opt out even further, and it wouldn't have been leaked in that breach. But some of the people on that list would have been, it's possible they could be on the electoral register list, which means someone could get their address easily. And yeah. And the third thing is, which a lot of people don't know about, I don't know how this hasn't been in front of the news, is that I think it was 5 MI5 officers who were so they're police officers, but it's not like they were guarding the MI5 compound or anything. They are part of MI5 in Northern Ireland. Their names were leaked. Now, a lot of questions are like, why were their names on the massive list in the first place? Like, why is there a document that has every single person's name in the police on it? That's just insane. Like, why? Like, that's mad. Why? So that's a huge risk as well. And the upshot of this is that there's a couple things. We don't exactly know what's going to happen yet, but one of the things that probably will happen is that a lot of people will want to move houses. Now, there's a scheme that was implemented by Stormont like a couple of years ago. I can't remember. It's basically, if a police officer thinks they're in danger, they can get money from the government to move house. And it's not a big deal on an individual level, like if a government, it'll pay out to an individual because, you know, going to protect the police officers. But because of this massive cock up by the PSNI, so it's 10,000 employees. Potentially, if all of these 10,000 employees think their lives are in danger, which not all of them will, but and they think their lives are in danger enough that they feel like they need to move, then they will apply for this compensation scheme, and they are legally, and as they should be, they should be able to legally access it, and they'll be able to get all this money from the government so they can move house. So, yeah. And basically this is a failure in the police. A lot of people were saying, you know, what's the dynamic here? Will they blame the low-level administration assistant who made this mistake? Or will it be on, as it probably should be, on the onus of the top-level staff? So the Chief Inspector, Simon Byrne, and the Assistant Chief Inspector, somebody, Todd, I can't remember. Yeah. So it's a huge issue, and I think it's bigger than people think, because it's not just the actual issue, but it really shows how badly run the police are. Like, it really shows also how underfunded they are. And part of the reason for that is because of Stormont being down, and they can't get the budget. They don't have the budget to recruit more people, so it's a bit shite. But with that, on that depressing note, I think let me pull up the music. Hold on. Pulling up the music. Play the music. There we go. Ooh, that is it for today. Let me switch over. I'll switch over to my camera too. Ah, yes. That is it for today. I enjoyed myself thoroughly. Thank you for the follows.
Evil Marshmallow 3, and Magpie Pie. And thank you for you guys being in chat as well, including you, GCAN336. It's been amazing. I've had a ball. I might be on tomorrow. Maybe. We'll see. If I can. Maybe. We'll see. But yes, it has been amazing. And I will end the stream now. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.